We're back. It's Tommy D, the one and only, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you 2 flights up from where the coffee machine is, in my kitchen, just below the roof, in my attic, baby. I'm in the attic. If you're looking for me, gang, that's where I am, at the top of the house, just below the roof. I do this every Friday morning and have been doing it for a bunch of weeks in a row. I mean, I think this is the 205th or 206th episode of this show, which is super incredibly awesome. I just said to my guest, Becky Rossman, I wasn't going to say incredible and I wasn't going to say unbelievable because those are kind of silly words. Because, like, I know it's real, so how can I say it's unbelievable? Because it is believable. Stop, Tommy. You're on a show. Stop. Figure this out later on. Point of the matter is, it is amazing. I'm thrilled. I'm so happy that I get to do this every single Friday. So I figured we'd start with this. What do you do, Tommy D, when you're not hosting Philanthropy and Focus? Monday night, we had an event for the Nonprofit Resource Hub, talking about how Medicaid is going to affect funding for nonprofit organizations. Shout out to the Nonprofit Resource Hub, Allison LaFrelita and Kelly and Serini, who run that organization. I'm one of the founding board members of that organization with a bunch of us. Fill you guys in on that later on. But if you want to know more about it, go to nonprofitresourcehub.org. I sneaked out, or I snuck out, whatever. I left that meeting early because a friend and colleague of mine was being honored by the North Shore Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So I met a bunch of folks from Kiwanis. I met a bunch of local Nassau County, Long Island, that is Nassau County, political and public officials. That was just Monday, man. We rolled that through the week, a bunch of nonprofit events that I was at, even up to last night. I attended 2 gallery openings for nonprofits in the arts world, and a friend of mine who's been on this show from an organization, COPS, which is New York Metro Cops, which supports families who have lost a loved one, a husband, wife, father, daughter, sister, mother, in the line of duty. And that was out here on Long Island at Mulcahy and Wantaw. And then, Wednesday, because not because I'm lazy, but because I'm strategic, I didn't want to send out 27 emails introducing my colleague, Tuka Youssef from We Connect the Dots. Lori Carey, CEO of that organization, has been on the show, but I didn't want to send out all these emails. So what I did, they have an upskills program, which, Becky, I was just on the website for Tuesday's Children, and I saw you have vocational stuff going on there. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be connecting. And I laughed because yesterday I was saying to you, watch, Becky, I'm going to be trying to like network for you, like during the show, which is what happens when you're Tommy D. But yeah, I know you have a career resource center. The organization that Becky Rossman runs as CEO is called Tuesday's Children. We're going to get into all that. But what I did was I had just a web meeting where Tuka talked about this upskills program. So if you are somebody who is unemployed or underemployed, 18 years or older, living in New York State, although there are connections that can happen outside of New York State, we'll connect you. But if you want to talk to me about that, send Tommy D at Philanthropy and Focus, PHOCUS.com, and I'll get you hooked up with Tuka over at We Connect the Dots. But what she was doing was she was explaining this. It was like a 28-minute meeting. She was explaining this to a bunch of our friends and colleagues from other nonprofit organizations who have vocational programs. I tell you all this just to answer the question that some people might have on their minds. What the heck does a nonprofit sector connector do? That's what a nonprofit sector connector does. I'm blessed with relationships and opportunities that I get to bring people together. So I believe 2 plus 2 does not equal 4 when you're talking about networking math. It's some kind of exponential, infinite number. I always say, well, what's the ripple effect of that? I believe the ripple effect of these things are infinite, because if somebody gets into an upskills program and is able to now provide better for their family, right? Maybe now that family situation changes, and now their younger family members, their situation changes, and the trajectory changes of that, and on and on and on. And that's what it is. I sound like that Energizer bunny. He keeps going and going and going. Some of you are like, what are you talking about? Some of us might remember the Energizer bunny. I think I sometimes am the Energizer bunny. Anyway, happy Easter, happy Passover, everybody. Becky Rossman is here. Tuesday's Children. Becky, we just got connected only recently in the last month or so. We only really spoke yesterday for the first time. I'm so jazzed to meet you. Like I said to you earlier, I have your bio. We'll talk about it a little bit. I feel blessed that I get to meet with people every single week on this program. And this is certainly one of those opportunities. CEO of Tuesday's Children, Becky Rossman. What's up? Good morning.
Good morning, Tommy D. Thank you so much for having me on here today.
You are very welcome. I am jazzed that you are here with me today. And I was like, just yesterday when we were chatting, I was like, oh my God, I kept going on and on and on. And I was like, but then even today, I'm like looking through your background and your resume, your bio, the whole thing. And I'm like, oh, blessings. It's a blessing that the nonprofit sector exists. There's a campaign going on here on Long Island around nonprofits, and really, I can't go into it all, but the Nonprofit Resource Hub is doing some research, and just from the perspective of, could you imagine? Okay, close your eyes and imagine the world without the nonprofit sector. Come on now, that's just nuts. There's so much that the sector does. Story for another day. We're going to speak specifically about Becky, your background, and this incredibly important, I said it again, incredible, this very important organization, Tuesday's Children, which, familial wise, I have certainly connections growing up here on Long Island to that. Uh, the day, for those of us in New York, that morning, Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, it was a beautiful sunny morning, man. It was just a beautiful morning. I'll never forget. I mean, I'm 47 now, so that I was like 21 years old that morning. My uncle Joe Graziano, New York City fireman, he's with us, but so many are not. And we'll never forget. We have to remember that. That was something we said, never forget. And I used to drive around in a little red sports car, and I had a flag that was on my antenna. And as long as, remember, we all had flags. There was flags everywhere. There's, American flags we had everywhere. So we'll get into the organization. We'll get into some memories. Becky, I want to hear your story. I always say, what drew you to the nonprofit sector? Why, what drew you to service? We're going to speak specifically about service, like you and I chatting out earlier in the virtual green room. But I want to know your story. I want to know about you, please.
Yeah, so I found my love of serving others when I was 15 years old. One of my friend's moms was a nurse, and she got me a job as a housekeeper in a nursing home. I quickly realized I wanted to work directly with people. So by the time I graduated high school, I had my CNA certificate, my EMTA, and my entire career has just been working with people, very diverse populations, aside from my time in the military. But I'm thankful for that opportunity as well, which is really where I honed in my leadership skills.
We're gonna get into the military stuff. I really want to play there for a while, but think about that, gang. Like, think in terms of opportunities come in front of you. You're a 15-year-old child, right? I have a 15-year-old daughter, so um, she would argue that she's not a child, but she would argue about a lot of things. So
You'll have that for a few more years, Tommy D.
yeah, only for the rest of my life. So that point in your life, you kind of open to the whole world. And I try to remind, we have four children, my wife and I try to remind them, like, you know, this is like such a cool time in your life. Like, you could just try stuff out, like you don't really, you don't have like a lot of financial responsibility, if any financial responsibility. So it's
Right.
like you can take chances. You had this opportunity. You said it was your friend's mom who got you this opportunity to work in as the housekeeper. And it was at like a senior living facility. What was that like?
Yeah, so nursing home, a
Yeah,
senior
nursing.
living
Yeah.
facility. So I actually grew up in a lower socioeconomic home.
Uh,
So I needed to work to pay for all of those activities. I tried everything. I was in cheerleading and
yeah.
dance and student council, and things were expensive. So that's why I needed like a real job.
Yeah.
Um, and I really just think my whole path, I'm a person of faith. It's just been kind of led by God. I've met the right people at the right times who have just poured into me. So I'm really focused on pouring into others and growing those leaders because I know I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have so much help along the way.
Yeah, I love that. And the faith thing's certainly important. Yeah. What uh what was it though that that service piece, is that from the faith, like as a 15-year-old kid, like I have some of my kids, well, my older kids, they have like little jobs in the neighborhood and stuff like that, which are cool, and you're going to learn how to, do customer service and interact with public and things like that. But in a nursing home setting, you're there to really be part of somebody's day, and be very involved. Is it what kind of resonated for you there?
Yeah, so for many of the residents, we were the only people they would see. They didn't have a lot of visitors. And I can't say that faith led me at that time. That's probably the time that I was begging my grandma that I didn't want to go to church. But looking back, it's just all of those opportunities. Like I did it so I could pay for cheerleading camp. There was no other bigger picture for me, but it really just opened the door for me to see the opportunities that are out there. There are a multitude of ways to help people, and I found that I enjoyed conversing with the seniors as much as obviously than the cleaning, which was fine. But I just really wanted to have a bigger part in caring and serving them.
Yeah, I love that because I really have said for many years that I think in this country at least, because I don't think they do it the same way in other countries. Unfortunately, at times we don't value our seniors and our older folks. And I have a friend of mine who, as you were talking about your EMT and all these things, and I have a friend of mine who's been on the show. His name is Fred Skanga, and Fred is the executive director of the Long Island State Veterans Home, which is here on Long Island. It's in the name, everybody. And these homes were this is different from the VA. And President Abraham Lincoln had created the Long Island State Veteran Home system. Fred's story, I can't wait to connect you guys there. He goes again, he's networking. But like I because his story is so similar. As a young person, he was involved as an EMT and so involved at such a like a young age, like crazy young age. Like he was I don't remember the statistics because it's you and me talking right now. It's not about Fred. But it was just there's such a cool opportunity to hear how his trajectory of his education went and his commitment and his service. So I want to get into this piece of you serving in the Army Reserves, things like that. Was how does that happen? Like in the sense of how does it happen? Meaning, do you come from a military family? Is that something you've always sort of said, I want to be involved there? How did you get into that?
So I am a first generation college student. The majority of my family went into the military, the trades. So I have two brothers. One was, one went to the Army, one went to the Marines. My grandfather was in the Air Force. His brother, they were both drafted for World War II. They had an older brother that was drafted for World War One. My dad was in the Navy. Like it's just what my family did. So it was kind of just a natural trajectory for me. And again, at the time, I was just looking at it as a way to pay for college,
Yeah,
but I got so much more out of it and just so thankful for those experiences. And, some of the things that I didn't really necessarily like, maybe growing up and not having all the things my friends did, it afforded me these opportunities to try things I probably never would have.
yeah.
And I absolutely love where it has taken me in life.
Give me an example. Being in the military, what example is something you got to try that maybe you wouldn't have tried?
Oh, I would say Victory Tower and basic training. You need those confidence courses.
Yeah.
Um, kind of a crazy story is we have this long ruck march before the night fire, and it's something you have to do to complete basic training. And I tripped in a hole, cut my finger halfway off. I had a 19-year-old medic sew my finger up in the field just so I could go through the course so I wouldn't get recycled. And it's just those types of
So
opportunities.
you
But I
finished. So you finished. What does recycled mean? What does that? Would that mean that night you'd have to redo it, or you'd have to start everything from basic training all over again?
start everything over. So I'm like, when my drill sergeant told me that, I'm like, just sew it up. I got to get through this, right?
Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
But I talk about that story because, it's those types of things. Like we all come to these crossroads nearly, every month, every week, whatever, where you have to make these choices. And sometimes, I mean, I could have chose to recycle,
Sure.
but I'm like, either decision would have been hard.
Yeah.
But I'm someone who believes in those short-term struggles for the long-term gain. And I'm like, you can get through anything.
A lot of people, I gotta tell you, like a lot of people couldn't get through what you just said. Like a lot of people, I'm done. I'm never coming back to this thing now. But I had to Google while you were talking. I had to Google Angela Duckworth with that book called Grit, and it came out a bunch of years ago, and it's just like that's grit. Like it literally was like hanging half off your finger. Sorry, everybody, cover your ears if you got a squeamish stomach here. But like bad cut. It wasn't like oh you scratch yourself. This is bad.
So like the whole part right here, and you can't really see, but if you're close up, you can see I had 7 stitches. It was a 19-year-old kid. I have a 19-year-old daughter.
Yeah,
It's kind of crooked, but I'm like, well, I still have my finger, so
still have it. Hey, you know what? That medic might be a surgeon right now. Who knows?
never know.
You never know. But that's grit. That's grit, baby. That's it. Like just making it happen. Let's go. You said like go back to that one piece. So I want to really get that short-term challenge for long-term success. What did you say there again?
Yeah, so short-term struggles for long-term success. I think a lot of times people they may not want to put in the work. But at the end of the day, we're going to be like, I'm the same age as you, I'm 47.
Yeah,
And a lot of
yeah.
people are like, well, I don't want to do that. It's going to take a year, it's going to take 5 years, but you're still going to get there. So you may as well put in the work, right?
What's going to happen? 5 years from now, I'm going to be 5 years older, right? Okay,
Right.
right. And I can like if not me, this is not actually. I'm getting skinnier over the years, but weight is
I
not
wish
a.
I had that problem.
That's not, like I was going to say. If I need to lose weight or whatever, I don't. I got to stop losing weight. But my thing is like whatever that task in front of you is, right? Or because there's something the outcome. If I wanted to lose weight, 5 years from now, the time went by. Whether you did
Right.
the thing, you didn't do the thing, at least we can feel really good about ourselves if we did the thing, you know. And I hear my own voice because I say this about this show a lot. I talked about the show for a long time before I started doing it. And now I've surpassed 200 episodes of something that was just an idea. So I try to speak to people and go, just freaking do the thing. Like, do the thing. Like, I don't care what the thing is. It's probably not going to. I leave you today, Becky, when we're done. And I'm sharing a little secret with the world. So now everybody's going to know my secret. Like, I'm recording 4 episodes today of Long Island Changemakers this afternoon. And I share that secret because I wanted people to think I do it like every single week, but I just knock out a whole bunch of episodes. But I share that because like I met my friend Erica Bradley, who's the executive director of North Shore TV, which is a public access TV station here on Long Island. And I said, I'm going to do a show at your studio. And I do two. I do hashtag ending the stigma and I do hashtag ending the stigma together and I do Long Island Changemakers. And I only tell you all that to, yeah, promote the cool stuff I'm doing, but also to tell you if you want to do that thing, just freaking try it. It might work out exactly how you want it. It probably won't, but it might work out differently. But it's just going to be a fun thing. And you can go, oh, that was awesome. Or that sucked. Either way, you did the thing, right? I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, you just need to do it. I think John Maxwell has a saying that when you first try it, you're going to be awful at it, but you just have to do it.
Yeah.
I kind of fell into the role of a CEO by happenstance.
Yeah.
I avoided every business class. This is not the direction I ever wanted to take. But I got the job and then I had to go to my previous boss and ask, how do you do all these things? Because I had no idea, right? So I'm like, and I tell everybody, you just get the job and you figure it out because that's where I received probably the best education and experience,
Yeah.
the failures and just trying it for myself.
Trial by fire, right? Like
Yes, absolutely.
figuring it out, man. Tinker around, make it happen. I love the humility of getting the gig that you had, and you had to go back to your old boss and go, dude, what do I do now? Like,
Well, she was the one who was like, "Hey, I think you'd be a great CEO." So I get the job, and I'm like, "How do you read a P&L?" Which is really important if you're a CNO,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah. Pretty important. Profit and loss, pretty important stuff, you know? So definitely, or you get a really good CFO. No, of course you need to know that stuff, gang. Yes, that's very, very important. So we're taking a quick break. We come back. I want to hear, after your military service, or if we want to share more stories about military service, we can. I mean, what I looked up too, hold on, I gotta find my notes because I said I wasn't gonna. You're a mechanic?
yes,
What
so
is before
diesel
we go to
mechanic.
break? What a diesel mechanic?
Yeah, so I was an all-wheel mechanic, a
Yeah.
63 whiskey. So I worked on everything from a Humvee to a 5-ton to a Hemet.
All right, pause right there. Gang, my friend Becky Rossman is a diesel mechanic. Now you have to come back after the break. We'll be right back. More to come.
Thank you.
Are you a conscious co creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
That's a catchy tune.
Isn't it? Don't you dig it? All right,
Will
let's
do.
go. Let's go. Cut through that static. I was showing you all who are watching on the stream. I'm wearing this t-shirt. I got to get these t-shirts made up because I want to wear it in all different colors. It says, "Believe there is good in the world." And then in another color, it says, "Be the good in the world." Activate, baby. You be the good in the world. You make the world a better place. Don't wait for it, right? I think it was President John F. Kennedy who, what did he say? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you could do for your country. JFK, I want to take a little bit away from that. How about ask not what this entire planet, the society, the humans, the animals, everybody involved, what can you do for them? How can you lean in? Not what about me, man? That's my funny voice. Not about what about me, man. What about everyone else? How can you give impact? How can you give back? How can you become part of the change? Be the change. All right, I rant. I get up on the soapbox. I must come back. A diesel mechanic in the army fixing Humvees. What else were you fixing?
Humvees, deuce and a halves, 5 tons, Hemmets, anything with wheels, nothing with tracks, no tanks.
No tanks.
No
How,
tanks.
so did you have any background in that type of work, technical work like that, mechanics? Like, did you ever change the oil in your car when you were like 18 years old or something like that? I
Well,
don't
I
even,
like holding the flashlight for my stepdad when he did it.
yeah, sure. I don't even think I did that. I'll tell you a funny story. So when that stuff would go on, like at my house, my dad would be doing things, and my younger brother would help him do different things around the house. And I was very uninvolved in those things. And but the funny story my dad likes to tell is he said all the years we when I was growing up, we lived together. He said we never had a television stolen. And the point of his joke would then be because my son Thomas was always watching it. Okay, everybody, womp womp. That's a dad joke, and I'm a dad, so
Yep.
but he for my whole life. So I didn't even hold the flashlight for my dad when he was changing the oil. Like you helped your stepdad at least. I didn't even know where it was. It wasn't I couldn't find the flashlight. So let's. How do you end up in the army and become a diesel mechanic? Like, how's that happen?
Oh, that was peer pressure. So I told you I come from a family of military, but my best friend in high school, she joined the Army Reserves around the same time I was going to. And she's like, hey, I signed up for this. You should too.
Okay.
That's how I went down that path because mechanics was actually my lowest score in the ASVAB.
Okay. So they wait. I missed something. Was she enlisting with you as well, or
Right. Yeah, she went in about 3 months before me. So
okay?
that was my plan as well, but I wasn't sure what job I wanted, what MOS.
Yeah, yeah, that's so cool. That's real. I think it's something if you can help me. I it's my own naivete, but like years ago, I realized that the majority of folks who serve our country in our military, all the forces, are not in a combat zone, are not in
Correct.
so there's I think and you might know this number better than me, but it's like I think it's less than 15% of folks are actually in a combat zone. There's so many more, whether it be you mentioned the medic before, whether it be people in administrative roles, JAG, obviously like you're talking about mechanics, food service. There's so much that goes on in our military.
Oh, absolutely. So it's like, the civilian jobs. I did read recently where since the global war on terror, since 9/11, we are seeing a lot of issues with military children, not just who are families of the fallen who've lost parents, but they have a lot of issues because the deployments are a lot longer and a lot more frequent. But to your point, it is a smaller majority
Yeah.
or, minority that is serving in combat areas.
Yeah. Well, and I also, again, I've never served. I'm not a veteran, but I know and meet through my relationships with the nonprofits and things like that. I mean, many veterans, and if you've served this country, you have served this country, and this country owes you certain things. It's not a right. There should be, in my opinion, again, I'm putting this out there, right? I'm just putting this out there. It's one man's opinion who's never served in a military situation. But if you've served, you've served. There shouldn't be anybody in their mind discounting what they should have access to because maybe they didn't do this or they didn't do that, right? You know what I'm trying to go, where I'm going with that?
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. I think we could do better by our veterans in the
Yeah.
country. I go
Yeah.
to the VA. I'm blessed. I'm in a really great area now that has great VA, but I wasn't before. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, there's a lot to be done. We did a couple of years ago in July. I had all 5 Fridays. That July happened to have 5 Fridays, and every episode was about an organization here in the New York area that's serving veterans in different ways. Yeah, one day you ever go sailing?
no.
So we have an organization. I'm very close friends with these guys. It's called Sail Ahead, and they take veterans sailing. And I hooked them up with my friend who is on the board of the yacht club near where I'm at. And 3 years in a row now we've gone sailing with veterans out here. It's just there's so many great organizations doing work, but we got to talk about your great
I
organization.
love how you connect people.
All I do. It's all I do. It's my whole world. It's so fun. Let's get into when you come out of the military, and was it right away you were going to be in the nonprofit sector?
Yeah, so I was in the nonprofit sector before,
Okay.
and then when I got out, I was a residential director for people with mental illnesses and developmental disabilities.
Mhm.
Ran 5 group homes in Peoria. And then I was also going to Bradley, kind of a non-traditional student because I did the military first. And that's when 9/11 happened and I got activated for a year.
So we were talking beforehand, and it's like that was like just a no-brainer, right? Like that was what our, especially folks who were already in the military, not to mention, I don't know the statistics, but so many people enlisted right after that. There was just the patriotism, right?
And I'd been in for 6 years already. So you do 8 years in the reserve. So 6 years are active, 2 years are inactive, where you can get called up in times of war. So in May of 2001, I went into the inactive ready reserve or individual ready reserve. And then my ex-husband and I both got called out at the same time. And we get back to the unit and we realized no one else from the IRR is there. And we found out that they forgot to file our paperwork. But at that time, they realized it was their mistake. So they give us the option, do you want to go or do you want to stay? And we're like, let's drop everything. Let's, leave our jobs. I unenrolled from Bradley and we were gone within 2 weeks.
And
Backfilling for the 528 Special Ops down in Fort Bragg.
this is before you had children. This is before children, right? Is that?
Yeah, before children. So we had a cat and a dog. So that was the hardest thing is we had to find friends who would take them.
Yeah, we know about it. I got my guy Cheeto is around here somewhere. He's our rescue dog, so I know sometimes we have to find a place to put him when we're traveling too. I get that, but that certainly that sacrifice, you did change your life. You took again. There goes the service piece again, right?
Well, you remember right after 9/11, I mean, there's nothing we could have done that would have been more important than, going with our unit. And at that time, it was such, I hate to use a word, but unprecedented. So usually when you get orders, you know where you're going and for how long, but our orders were what was known as open-ended. We didn't know where we would be going and we didn't know for how long.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for all the servicemen and women around this country who have put their lives on the line and continue to do so each and every day. We appreciate you, not just on Veterans Day, gang, every day. Really, we must. And I can't get on my soapbox because we just don't have the time, and I left it downstairs. But but the thing, young people are going, what is he talk? What's his soapbox, man? Like, what's he talking about?
See, that's me asking kids, what's that mean? What's that
Yeah.
mean?
Oh my God. You know what? We'll have to talk later because I took a screenshot of something. It was on Instagram or somewhere else. And it was like explaining the language. So my kids are 15, 14, 12, and 10. Okay. So they talk about Sigma. And I have this show called hashtag Ending the Stigma, right? Together we talk about, they call, Dad, why are you trying to end the Sigma? I go, I would love to end the Sigma, to be honest with you, because I have no idea what language you people are even talking about. And again, I'm Tommy D. I'm not like, I am 47, right? But I am not like an old man. Like, I'm pretty cool. Like, I'm into some stuff. I know some things, but like the way they talk and, like, so now I walk around my house like, what the Sigma? Like, what the Sigma? Because that's how they talk around here, these people. So
They like to make us think we are old.
that's the thing. I'm like, you have no idea how cool I am. I'm Tommy D. You don't know what that means. Like, and they're like, whatever, boomer. I'm like, I'm Gen X. I'm not even a freaking boomer, man. Like stop doing that. So I am out of control. We're going to go to break. When we come back from break, I want to hear about how do you, I do have some notes here. There was a nationwide search for them to find you to take on the role as CEO of this organization. So I want to hear about like how that happens when you get tapped and you hear that this organization is looking for a leader, and what did that mean for you, where you were at the time, and how you sort of made this decision, and then we'll get into the programs and all that stuff. How's that sound, Becky Rossman?
Sounds great.
All right, we'll be right back. Philanthropy in Focus. Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
Just got to make a quick shout out. I recently I share this all the time, so I'll just share it again. Hashtag ending the stigma together. So I see my therapist twice a week, gang. Normalize it, right? Twice a week. So I've been missing some meetings with some of the gang here at talkradio.nyc, but I had the opportunity to see some of the folks the other day at a meeting. And I met Angie Snowball, another host here on the show. She's saying on LinkedIn, she's saying, your jingle rocks. And I would totally buy one of those t-shirts. Well, check it. I won't. I sound like that character, Sacha Baron Cohen, Ali G. Check it. But check it out. Angie, I loved hanging out on the Zoom meeting, learned so much with you with the whole LinkedIn and stuff like that. But I'll tell you, you got to grab one of the hashtag ending the stigma t-shirts, because the money we raise from that is all going back to all different organizations with mental health. So we'll talk about that. But I will have some of these be the change, or excuse me, be the good, believe there's good in the world. I'll have some of these t-shirts made up too. All right, my guest today is a veteran with a personal connection to Tuesday's Children's Mission. Served in the U.S. Army Reserves for 8 years, coming out of the individual ready reserves after 9/11, which we just spoke about. She's involved in her community through decades of service on boards, including America's Gold Star Families, Freedom Paws Service Dogs, going to talk about that. Commerce Bank's Advisory Board educator, having taught about trauma-informed care. I'm all about that. I mean, the meeting I had this morning was my friend, Sarita DiBianca, outside of Philadelphia, Siloam Wellness. We talk about trauma, talk about people living with HIV and AIDS. So much to talk about. I lost where I was going to read from, so I'll just move on to other things in this little thing I was reading.
You can just make them up.
I will. She's a Mets fan. Are you a Mets fan?
I am. I love Jay Horwitz.
All right. Very good. Very good.
I'm a fangirl of his.
All right. We'll talk about that. I got some connections over at the Metsies. Applied Forensic Psychology, your master's degree in Applied Forensic Psychology from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology, and your bachelor's in psychology from Bradley University. And this is great. I want to talk to you about this on a whole different show. We'll have you come in the studio about trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. I know a little bit about cognitive behavioral therapy. I talk about it twice a week, in fact. And we're just going to get into your conversation about, I want to hear about how you got to Tuesday's Children. And we did a little bit, we set the groundwork with 9/11 and things like that, your military service. But let's get into, I want to know how they courted you. How did they find you? And what made you make this decision to take on the leadership here at Tuesday's Children?
Well, to be honest, Tommy, I wasn't even looking for a new job.
Mhm.
My best friend, Roberta English, she reached out to me and said I was looking at jobs for someone else. And I saw Tuesday's Children, and it just screams Becky Rossman. And I
Yeah.
think it was just my 18 years as a CEO in nonprofits. I have worked with trauma, kids that were sexually abused, a lot of poverty issues, and then with homicides, with victims and perpetrators of gun violence. And then, of course, the military aspect, getting called up after 9/11. So both of the missions that Tuesday's Children serves, the families of the fallen and 9/11 community, they just really resonate with me. So even though I wasn't looking and I lived in Illinois at the time, I'm like, oh, I need to throw my hat in the ring. So I kind of came in at the 11th hour and I met the board, the 5 board members who interviewed me, and just really was excited about working with them as well as the mission.
Yeah. Yeah. But uh, sometimes our friends know better.
Yeah.
Sometimes our friends know better. We got to have people looking out. We have to have advocates looking out for us. And shout out to your friend. What was it? I know English. What was her first name?
So Roberta English, she's the CEO of Wildlife Prairie Park in Peoria, and we worked together for years. She was my COO.
I love it. Well, Roberta English, what Wildlife Prairie Park? Is that what you said in Peoria?
Yeah, so she's really turned that organization around. It used to be run by the state. They pulled all the funding, and she is just expanding it exponentially.
Well, Roberta, when you hear this, I'm going to do 5,000 episodes of Philanthropy and Focus, and this is like 207. So whenever you want to come on the show, we'd love to have you. Never had somebody from like a wildlife organization on my show. I really don't think we have. So that would be super fun. But it's that sort of network and relationship. You go, Tommy, you're always connecting, right? But that's what we do. We look out for each other all the time. It's what we have to do. Let's talk about the gun violence thing. I have to get you to meet my friend Linda Beagle Schulman, Scott J. Beagle Memorial Foundation. Linda's son was tragically murdered in the Parkland shooting, which was the big national story, international, I guess, I'm sure. But Linda is a friend of mine here on Long Island, and she's been on this show. Maybe she's been on twice. She's been on Long Island Changemakers. She doesn't want your guns. She's not trying to take your guns, gang. What she told me the first time I met her was, Tommy, I want your 4 children to be safe. That's what she wants. Okay. That's all we're talking about. I'm not going to make this some kind of political. It's not about that.
Yeah.
I've got to connect you guys. We'll talk about that later on. Tell me about this organization. So you mentioned who served. Let's hit that one more time. Who served by the organization? Then we can get into programming.
Yeah, so we serve the 9/11 community and families of the fallen. So initially, Tuesday's Children was started with an 18-year mission to get children who lost a parent on 9/11 to adulthood. Now, obviously, we're years later, but we were finding that there's still a lot of needs in the 9/11 community, which are very closely related to what we're seeing with families of the fallen. We expanded our mission about 10 years ago to include the military side for post 9/11. There was a realization that, as we talked about already, that a lot of people joined the military after 9/11. So we want to make sure we were serving both populations. They kind of have they have a similar loss. And we're taking the foundation that we learned with 9/11 and expanding it, but things are a little bit different within that community.
Yeah. So it's just so interesting how life happens. Last night I mentioned at the front end of this show that I was at an event for New York Metro Cops for my friend Trish Mullen, who's been on the show. And trauma it's everywhere, right? It's ubiquitous. We all have it to different extremes, different levels and things like that. But the loss of somebody, certainly either serving our country or in the line of duty, I mean, it's tragic. It's just tragic.
It absolutely is. I mentioned earlier having mentors, and I have mentors throughout my entire life, even here at Tuesday's Children, which I could go on about my powerhouse of a board. Hopefully we
Yeah.
have time to talk about that. But I met Ryan, and I feel bad his name escapes me. I'm going to connect you with him. He works at Home Base. He has his PhD.
Doing a show. We're not networking, Becky. We're trying to do it like a talk show right now. And you want to network? What are you doing?
I want to network. So I can't say enough about Ryan. He lost his dad on 9/11, and he has just been able to really put the pieces together for me, like explaining why we have some families who really don't want to talk about 9/11 anymore. They're like, I want to move on. And then we have some families that, are really stuck in trauma. And how can we meet people where they are, right? And he has done so much research on the trauma behind 9/11 and how the collective grief has impacted some individual grief. And then there's a lot of information. I don't want to blunder it, but a lot of talking about false hope. So I came from Peoria, Illinois, where Peoria had Charles Chip Chan, who lost his life on 9/11. So same age as us. He was early 20s, working for Cantor Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
But I remember the stories of even after, we went to Fort Bragg, the false hope of they were trying to locate his body. Maybe he was still alive, and how that really impacted the younger generation who lost their parents. So depending on what those stories are, but I know I'm getting into connections, but I really want to connect you with Ryan, because Ryan works at home base where he does stuff more so for the veterans, but we're looking at partnering where we can maybe help our 9/11 community as well. We're all about collaboration over competition. So I also want you to connect me with the upskills person. So even though with
right.
free resources,
Wasn't that perfect? Like I thought of that only looking at
yes.
like the website this morning. It came to me. I'm like, oh my God. But I didn't know you then. Like I didn't like, you know what I mean? We were
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
but we hadn't gotten to this point, and it's okay. We just do it on Monday or Tuesday next week. It's no big deal, man. So
Yes, we just have such a limited staff, and one organization can't be everything to everyone. So right now we're really focusing on expanding our network.
Yeah.
We may serve the same population, but we have different services. So like I'm making referrals I just refer people to America's Gold Star families for scholarships. I mean, we're all in this together, and there's enough trauma to go around.
yeah, I laugh because there's plenty of it. A bunch of years ago, I had there's an organization South Jersey outside of Philadelphia called Project Refit, and be an organization for you certainly to know about. And I had one of the founders on my show, and I actually remember I was in the Poconos at the time doing this show. It was like I was remote, but everything's remote. But I was like I was up in the Poconos, and Dan, who was on my show, I think his last name is Lombard. Dan Lombard was on the show with me, and something he said. I mean, he was blown up in a Humvee. This man, blown up. Like it was. I mean, he was on fire. Okay. And something I said took this conversation into a direction where he was like saying, "Look, Tommy, your trauma is real. The other person's trauma is real. Everybody's trauma is real. Just you didn't experience what I experienced, and I didn't experience what you experienced, but that is real. So trauma is ubiquitous. It is what we need to address. It is okay to not be okay, everybody. It is okay to realize that you had stuff in your life that you need to work through." Right? I have to say this when I say it when it comes up, because it's just so real, Becky.
And you're not alone. So we're hearing a lot of our families feel very isolated, and they feel like they're just the ones struggling, but there's so many people. So we want people to know that they aren't alone in their trauma. And you're right, it is ubiquitous. Oh, you're muted.
Muted on my own show. Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. I was coughing, so I put the mute on. I just was about to say I looked up Charles Chip Chan, 23 years old, son of John and Julie Chan. So sending love to the Chan family and everybody else who lost somebody on September 11th, and everybody who loses people every day, because loss is real and trauma is real, and keeping yourself on mute when you're doing a live talk show is real too. That happens. So I'm gonna share the website. We'll go to a quick break. When we come back, I want to hit upon programs. I want to hit upon like what the intake looks like for somebody who comes to Tuesday's Children with some of their own trauma and their backstory and their challenges. You can kind of tell me what that looks like. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
We will be right back. Becky Rossman and Tommy D. Right back.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.
No, Becky, no, the theme song says nonprofits need connections to move in the right direction. So anybody who gets cranky that I'm networking in the middle of my show live, they probably shouldn't be listening to the show. I mean, this is what this, it's in the freaking song, everybody. I see family programs, adult programs, gang. The website is tuesdayschildren.org, tuesdayschildren.org. Family programs, adult programs, career resource center, which is that little thing that prompted me about the upskills program. Shout out to Tuka Youssef, my friend and colleague, and Lori Carey over at We Connect the Dots, which if there wasn't an organization called We Connect the Dots, I would have invented one. Youth mentoring, community resilience, and then obviously one of my faves, mental health and wellness. So let's get to that. How does somebody connect with the organization? Are they referred to the organization? Like, what does that look like?
So a lot of the people who come in for services are referred by other organizations or other family members. We have a resource navigator. We just created that position last May, and she helped, I want to say, the numbers just keep climbing, but over 400 people so far. And she does a lot of external referrals as well as internal. As I talked about, we have a very small, limited staff, so we can't do everything. So we make referrals, and most of the families on average need 5 separate referrals when they come to see us.
Wow.
So kind of the same in, the regular world with United Way. So we're seeing those. And then Abigail's our resource navigator, and she just kind of lets people know the services we have internally. Right now, we have our youth mentoring for essentially kids who lost a service member, their parent, or a sibling. We are waiting for 25 mentors in almost 17 states. So I'm going to send you the mentoring map if you can share that at some point.
Yeah, we certainly can. And something came up while you were talking about. Did you say Abigail is the resource navigator?
Yes.
Something came up for me while you were talking about that. And just this is what happens in my brain. So like I've been doing these little things where I'll just I met somebody last night and she has an event coming up and I can't get her on the show till like July because we're just busy. We got a lot of episodes filled in. And I was like, well, why don't we just jump on like a Zoom call and we'll do like a 9-minute video. I don't know why 9, but 9-minute video where we promote your event. Like Abigail should probably just come on and we do like a Facebook Live or whatever, and we just talk about that, right? And then maybe somebody from your jobs program comes on and we just do it. Only because I can't help myself and I just want more and I just want more opportunity. But that's like more opportunity to help tell stories. So like I always want the CEO, the executive director, that's who I want on my show because I think that's the tip of the spear if we go to military stuff, but that's the tip of the spear. That's a person from leadership, right? So that's who comes on this particular program. However, I know you're going to say, just like all my other friends in this space say, Tommy, it's not about me. It's about my team. It's about all the work that's going on. It's about the Abigails and as like people like we serve like Ryan and all these different people in these relationships who are connected to. So we can do these things. So your team can come on and gang, if you have a nonprofit organization and you have something coming up, reach out to me, Tommy D at Philanthropy and Phocus.com, and we'll just do these things and have fun. It'll just build momentum for what I'm trying to do in the world. So they come to you, they have these referrals, they need things, they need navigation. Let's go back into that a little bit if you could.
Yeah. So, and we would love that opportunity, by the way. I have an amazing team. A lot of our intakes, just so you know, with our military families that we serve, it's not just Gold Star. So regardless of circumstance of loss.
Mm-hmm.
So the government doesn't necessarily look at people who've lost service members unless it's in the line of duty, which is the Gold Star. We are having probably just a slight majority of the people coming through who have died by suicide. So right now we're kind of in this trajectory where things are, we're really leaning into our families, looking at the family surveys and making sure that we're, again, meeting them where they are with those specific services. And I kind of alluded to earlier. So when we started serving the 9/11 community, everyone wrapped around them in Long Island, in New York. The world was just so supportive. What we're seeing is we're taking those services and applying them across the nation, but we have a very small remote staff. And in the military, if you lose a service member, you have 1 year until you're kicked off base. So essentially, they lose all of their natural support connection.
Let me stop you to get that context, meaning the family. So family just gives people like what paradigm that is. Folks live on base as a family unit, right? Okay.
Yeah, so they're living on base, and if they lose their service member, then they have a year. So the kids have to move schools, they lose their teachers, they lose their friends. The surviving parent typically loses their supportive, their authentic network. So that's a really hard barrier that we're trying to work through. But we're seeing barriers still within both 9/11 and the families of the fallen. So we're kind of changing some of our programs. How we did career mentoring for 9/11 is a little bit different. So 40% of families of the fallen are below poverty line. And losing the breadwinner, it really compounds their financial issues as well as mental health. But for both populations, especially for 9/11 responders, we're seeing a lot of financial concerns as well. I'm sure you saw the pullback with a lot of the federal funds on just healthcare and other ridiculous things. But now they have these, issues from health-related illnesses due to 9/11, and they're raising families and they need some financial help. So the top two things we're seeing from our families, and we're really leaning in to figure out what is the best way to serve them and fill gaps that aren't met by other organizations, are mental health and financial.
Yeah. Yeah, which if you took a Venn diagram, those circles might be like right on top of each other,
Yeah.
But the need, one, I don't know which is the tail wagging the dog, but mental health and financial need, and just, I mean,
A
yeah,
lot of the surviving, parents or spouses are having a hard time because they really don't even have time to process their grief. They're worried about the grief of their children, but they're also worried about getting food on the table. So financial often takes precedence over the mental health, which can have long-term effects on the entire family.
100% it does. Yeah. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's he's certainly a Long Island change maker, big dog, Jeff Reynolds out here on Long Island, runs Family and Children's Association. And I was looking back at an episode we did a couple weeks ago on it was either on I sneaked him into the studio and had him do 2 episodes. He did hashtag ending the stigma together with me, and he did Long Island Changemakers, and he's just such an icon on this island. And he said, Tommy, one of the challenges, I tell you that he did both shows because I don't remember which show he said this on, but it was just like getting access to mental health services is not like, it's like I need mental health services now. And how about, well, we could maybe get to so we today's we're in April of 2025, let's just say, and they go, yeah, we can get you in on June 1st, or what that's 8 weeks from now. Like I need to see someone now, right? And so that whole thing needs to be rejiggered. It's just we need mental health services on demand in this country, on this planet, with this entire race of human beings. We need to do that. That's what we have to do, right?
It's a national issue, and I have a success story that goes along with that.
Yeah.
So we are partnering closely with Cohen Clinic to try to get our families into mental health services. Because to your point, the wait is so long. And I was talking to a mom. She has 2 daughters, and her oldest daughter was having suicidal ideation, which is fairly common. They lost their dad. He died by suicide, service member. And it took her almost a year to get into a psychiatrist to get the right medication. And now she's in counseling, and the family's doing really well because they got the services they need. And when I talked to the mom right before Christmas, she said that this is the first Christmas in 6 years they're actually celebrating since she lost her husband and their father, because they're all in a better mental health space. So just like you, that's one of the things we try to do at Tuesday's Children is connect the dots. It might not be a service that we provide, but if we can open the door a little bit quicker for our families, we're seeing that that's what they really need help with. And a lot of families aren't getting the benefits that they deserve and they're entitled to, because if you've looked at a government paperwork or contract, a lot of times that is overwhelming and kind of intimidates people. So helping them walk through those processes as well.
Yeah. Playing connector. I hear you're doing it. I love it. I can't wait to keep developing this relationship with you and your organization, because there's so much here. I have so much to say. Just, my blessings and love and just respect for that family who had that loss. And gang, when somebody takes their own life, what it does for me right away is I feel for that person. How much pain were they in? How much pain were they in? And we have to consider that and see that from love and compassion. And, even the words we use, right, have to be, committed suicide. It's like a criminal act, but took their own life. We have to use different words. I don't have to all the time.
Yeah, died by suicide.
Died by suicide. Thank you. We have to change the language, and certainly in our veteran community, that the 22 a day and all this thing. I'm interviewing somebody in the next couple of weeks, just to talk more about that. But what we have like a moment or two. I just want to hit upon. I'm looking at some events that you have coming up. You want to just tell me about them, please, and I'll share the screen a little bit while you're talking about.
Absolutely. So boxing is one of our main events. It is on June 4th and it sells out quickly, but we would love for people to buy tickets, buy a table. There's sponsorship opportunities on our website. Kentucky Derby is run by our junior board, which I cannot say enough about our junior board. Past recipients of our services, now they raise money, they mentor, they help us. So they're going to be doing the Kentucky Derby on May 3rd. We're going to have a watch party at the rooftop bar at Elsie, I believe.
You're doing this. Hold on, you're doing this boxing event at the Edison Ballroom.
Yes,
that's where we had the first New York City Imagine Awards. Was at the Edison Ballroom. I didn't know they could like roll in a boxing ring in there. How cool is that? I got to get to that event. I have a friend of mine, Michael Goldberg, who's an amateur fighter.
We're still looking for fighters too up until next week.
His challenge. Well, we'll talk about that. Let's talk about connecting. He runs a networking group called the Networking Group, and for a long time I was I was a chief culture officer of that organization. But I see something going on at Pocono Raceway. Gang, the website is tuesdayschildren.org. And then I clicked on events. Where was the thing about the Derby? You said Junior Board Annual Kentucky Derby Watch Party.
May 3rd. And then we have a great golf classic. It's at the Creek this year, but I didn't mention it because I think it's already sold out. So
well, it's funny. That's a client of ours at Vanguard Benefits. We do the benefits for the Creek.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
small world.
It just gets smaller every day. As soon as I start talking, it gets smaller. So the Penthouse, the Kentucky Derby Watch Party, Saturday, May 3rd, 2025, 4:30 to 7:30 at the Penthouse at LC Rooftop. Gang, you want to hang out with me and you want to hang out with Becky Rossman, you got to hit up with us at one of these events. Go to the website, check it out. The junior board. I love to hear junior board, young people getting involved, making the world a better place. Be the good, right? Be the good. You can lead
our legacy.
You know what? That's it, right? They are your legacy. Yeah. The young people.
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. Again, from a 15-year-old kid working in a nursing home, right? You knew service from a family of veterans, from family of military service. You know how important our young people is. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. He's closing the show with a song. He's unbelievable, multi-talented Tommy D. Becky Rossman, it was an absolute blast hanging out with you this morning. Thanks for being on my show. Anything you want to leave them with before we go?
Just thank you so much and visit our website. We would love your support. And we're also looking for mentors.
I love it. They're looking for mentors. You're going to send me that information. Maybe, you know what? We'll do a quick video about the mentors with the quick video about navigation, and we'll put all that stuff out on social media. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being my friend. Everybody make it a great day. I got to go. I'll see you next Friday. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nonprofits need connections to move in good directions. So cut through all the static. Join Tommy in his attic.